Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you with a video. Alright, so I'm compelled to talk a little more about these LA Lakers because, quite honestly, I'm pretty happy about the win. Um, the game itself was cool. We did a lot of good things, but that's not really the focus. I'm talking about just getting a W tonight and putting ourselves in a position to be a little closer to having some look at security into the playoffs. That's really what my own hope is. I would say goal, but obviously I don't affect the thing. But what I can say is what I would have as a goal if I'm the team is to try to win what this is considered to be a mini tournament, a tournament before the play-in tournament, which is the fight to get into the playoffs, um, which may ultimately slot you into the play-in tournament if you reach second place. That's essentially what it is. Because if you're in third place, you're out. That's just how I'm equating it. But you know what you want to do ultimately um, is get yourself in one of those the top tier. Is how I'm looking at that. So the top tier is where Phoenix is, um, and given the fact that you know you're 3 games away from it, if you win out, and this is just roundabout numbers. Most of the time, that's how I speak anyway. You guys know I don't have a computer in front of me or looking at stats at all. This is just memory. So, but I think if anything, you're like at the most 3.5 games, I believe is what I last saw, between 4 and 13 or some weird stuff like that. The point is, if you're in that range, you got a striking chance if you win out, depending on the strength of schedule and other teams' strength of schedule. So, for me, I'm looking at this as a tournament in and of itself, and we should be trying to win this tournament. And if we win this tournament, we have playoff security. So that's just how I have it set up in my head. And if the NBA is looking at it clearly, um, that might be some way to market it going forward. It kind of fell into this type of standing sort of thing, but it really is fun having a lead up to the lead up, if that makes any sense. I don't know why this um, has been, kind of found this way. You look up and like 8 teams have the same record. But what I can tell you is it's a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun when you have this much parity. And I think that's something else I want to say. I think teams going forward, when you're assessing if you have had any success, you got to pay close attention to certain things that have to do with your own team and not so much that has to do with the record. Because if you're in this mix, in this tournament, you're doing good. That's really, it's as simple as that. So if you look at yourself and you find yourself saying, "Oh, the record is sub 500, we're barely 37 and 37," the reality is the fourth best team is only 2 games better than that. So when you assess yourself versus the field, the record is somewhat of a facade. And when you consider so many games that are quote unquote um, scheduled losses, the way the NBA handles the league today, it's even more so of a facade. You kind of just want to be in this imaginary tournament that we're actually are in, coming down the stretch of this season. Um, I don't know that you can simulate this every year. Obviously, you don't, because the Eastern Conference doesn't have this going on right now. But this is something you want if you're the NBA. Whether you stumbled into it or forced it, it's good. It's good stuff. It's good stuff to have everybody at 37 and 37. I'm not gonna lie, it's fantastic. And what you end up finding is you wonder if these teams are gonna tire each other out trying to get into this so-called tournament. But you also wonder if they're gonna be so battle ready to where they're gonna knock off the first seed or the second seed. You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing you wonder. If the team is good enough to get through the play-in tournament, if they're not out of the gas, they may be ready to whoop some you know what. And that's kind of what this ends up being. This is something that you feel excited about, just as a fan. So we're in the thick of it as a Lakers. I have made some decisions that ultimately kept us at the bottom of the pile, but it doesn't suck to be down here. It really doesn't. From a competitive standpoint, every game is a playoff game leading into the playoffs, so it's just going to be fun all the way through June. And so this has been one of the most fun seasons. It really has when you consider how all year long we were waiting to make a trade. You know, all year long we were hoping to get good enough, and then we were having injury issues, etc. And even now we don't have Bron, but here we are in the thick of things, um, with an exciting team and players that are breaking out, talk of the town. Now, haters who hated our team, talked bad about us for the last 6 years, kind of don't know how else to talk but positively because of some of the stuff that they're seeing down there. So it's a shifting of the guard once again in the Western Conference. It almost feels like 2020 all over again. Not to say that I think we're gonna ultimately be the team that wins in the end, but I don't think you can exclude this team. You know, we especially if we're going to improve in certain key areas, and I'm seeing us improving right around the right time. I hope these improvements are real and not just us kind of, doing things the right way for a short time and then going back to old ways. But you figure this is a good sign right here when you see teams with this much pressure on the line and finding a way to get these victories against quality opponents. You know, the Phoenix Suns team, obviously they're missing certain players, but that's Devin Booker down there. That's Chris Paul down there. You know, team like Orlando, they're not the greatest team in the world, but they certainly have a lot of size you got to deal with. Certainly, you got some talented players that you have to guard. And of course, tonight, OKC has all kinds of talent, and they came at us full force. So this team, the Los Angeles Lakers, with guys who have been struggling as of late. A lot of different changes in the lineup, a lot of uh, potential distractions going on with certain stuff that's being said around the media and around the team. You gotta appreciate how focused they ultimately have been. You know, you gotta give credit to them, and so that's what I want to do, man. I want to definitely give credit, show love, and hopefully we can encourage our team to continue to win these games, and continue to keep their foot on the gas. The same intensity that got us these victories is going to be the same intensity that gets us the next several. And I guess what I'm wondering about is, are we going to start feeling ourselves, so to speak? Are we going to forget that, there's more work to be done, or that a few weeks ago we were really unhappy about what we were seeing down there? We want to keep this confidence. And I want to see us continue to do what I saw tonight in terms of how we continue to put the pace through the end of the game. We were having a close game tonight, but we did not slow down. We were still trying to throw lobs up dang near as the game expired. It was the type of thing that I was asking us to do when we were losing games like the Boston game earlier in the season. We were slowing the pace down after running a fast pace throughout 3.5 quarters. Got down to the 60-minute mark and decided we wanted to walk the ball and slow down the pace. I was screaming at us not to do that, and we had did it several other times after that, to a point where it was something that I really wanted us to improve on. And tonight, the Los Angeles Lakers showed me that they had that in mind, that they were going to continue to keep the same pace that they had gotten the lead with throughout, and they were going to run the OKC Thunder out of the gym and probably try to dunk on the way out the door. And that is exactly the type of energy that I think can win a lot of basketball games for teams if you keep that killer instinct in mind and just continue to keep your foot on the gas no matter what the clock says. It takes me back to something I said randomly in a basketball game. Don't remember which game it was earlier in the season, but we were dealing with a team that, because we were missing the type of players that we were missing, we had absolutely no chance of coming back into the game. And so even though we had like 9 minutes to go in the game, I had referenced that minute mark as to say I wasn't really excited about the fact that we had so much time left, because we were in between the lines with a team that we couldn't defeat. So that 9 minutes was just going to be them toying with us all the way through the end of the clock. Not necessarily 9 minutes worth of time that we could actually use our heart to get back in the game, because they had such an advantage on us that it really didn't matter. They were just going to use that time to have fun and beat the heck out of us. And so, not to say that's how it played out or anything of that nature, but what I'm telling you is that's the type of mentality I want to have a against our opponents when we play them. If they got 9 minutes left, that's 9 minutes left. They in a torture chamber with us. Not 9 minutes left for them to fight. No, that's 9 minutes for them to have to deal with the pressure of a 25-0 run. And that's what I think defense and offense can turn into when you keep the pedal to the metal and the type of offensive talent that we have down there, the type of shooting and abilities that we have down there. If we have that type of mentality, we're going to hurt teams bad. We're going to hurt teams bad because they're not going to be used to a LeBron James-led team not slowing down like that. Dunk on the way out the door. I'm telling you, you're going to run the score up. Teams think they're going to lose by 5 because they got 2 minutes left and the score is whatever it is in that way. Nah, they're going to lose by 20 because we going to be scoring on them all the way out. Unless they want to just continue to foul us on the way. But that's how it has to be, because at the end of the day, that's a killer instinct. That's going to ultimately secure you victories. And that's what it's all about, securing victories. Trusting the clock to do that. The clock is never going to do that for you. All they're doing is allowing the other team time for which they can operate to get back in the game. See, that's when it becomes time for them. When you slow it down and play into their hands, you're essentially saying, okay, it's your clock. Do with it what you will. That's why I only conserve energy when time, not energy, but time when it makes sense. When the score dictates that you should slow down. But a lot of times, the score does not, you know. A lot of times a guy will try to slow down when he's up by 10. That's not enough. That's not enough at all in this league when guys can hit 2 and 3 threes in a matter of 7 to 8 seconds. Got to give yourself more of a cushion in that way. So those are the type of things I want our team to study and try to gauge and try to incorporate into what it is that we're thinking. And every team should, really. But these are the type of things that the Lakers are definitely deficient at specifically. You know, just clock things, understanding the clock management, timeouts, challenges that everybody mentions. All of these different things that have to do with timing are things that I think we can improve on and really shock the world once we do so with the type of talent that we have. So yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm excited. I'm an overall excited basketball fan. I just wish that the overall product had a better reputation throughout the year. You know, as far as some of the conversations that have been had around the game that allowed us to get to this point, it does taint it slightly, but all in all, it's still very fun in the situation to see so much parity, and I'm going to enjoy it for what it is as we continue to watch it. So yeah, that's where my head is. I think, all in all, I have to look at these standings and see where these teams are. That's the most important thing, is to see how they're slotted and how that's relative to how many games are left. That's really a type of conversation I'd rather have, but I don't have that information in front of me right now. But with KD coming back, you just have to wonder what Phoenix is going to be able to do over the next several games. I don't expect that they would lose these games with him coming back, but when you bring someone back into the lineup, as I always say, you can mess with the chemistry. Anybody that's heard me speak knows what I'm saying, but it can just mess with the continuity at times when you bring a big piece back. But a guy like KD, you just assume he's going to hit all the shots anyway, just because that's what his talent's going to give you. But KD is starting to have injuries pile up, man, and I just am wondering how this is going to go in Phoenix. If they're going to have a threshold for the injuries that could be possible as he ages, or could his contract be on the move? I don't think anybody's thinking about trading KD, but these type of things can happen quickly, as it pertains to the cachet of a player, especially once they become traded once or twice. Not to say that he would not find a home quickly, because he obviously would, but if his injuries do become a thing, I can see a world where he's moved again, based on just Phoenix overall situation with Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. Depending on how they move with DeAndre Ayton, they still have a young timeline, and I don't know what happens with Chris Paul's contract or where his contract is, but if it's outstanding for extra years, I don't know what the future holds. I really don't. So they definitely want to capture this year's championship. It would be ever so important for them to try to do that, but I honestly don't. I really don't think they can. looking at some of these teams that they are going to have to deal with, I just don't think they're better than a lot of these teams, even with Kevin Durant. Seeing how things are shaping up down the stretch of this team this season, they just don't have the bench. The role players are not going to be good enough to go up against some of these teams that are just so very deep. I think about my Lakers. I think about the Kings, um, Memphis. I just don't know that Phoenix can beat all three of those teams. I don't know if they can. They might be able to beat one of them, but if they run through that path, they're going to get knocked off eventually. It's just too much depth. So these are the type of things that I know is coming for Phoenix. I just know it. After seeing them yesterday, um, their team is just not good enough. Even if they have everybody, it's just not going to work, in my humble opinion. But this is not a one-year thing for them. But if KD starts having injury issues, it may not be a 4-year thing for them. So that's all I'm saying. Also, I want to double back to Memphis because they're winning, man. They're winning in a lot of different ways. You got Luke Kennard going for 30 points and 10 threes tonight. That is not minor at all. I think that dude is much better than the Clippers thought he was, and I'm pretty sure they're regretting trading him at this point. They just shouldn't have did it. I'm going to tell you something. For me, Detroit shouldn't have gave up on Luke Kennard either. He was a player that should have been just going ahead and developed. Everybody knew he should have been Donovan Mitchell. Nobody, even the consensus, would have probably drafted Donovan Mitchell with that pick. But Detroit decided they were going to take him. And I thought he was a hell of a player then, man, because he had not only a really nice shooting ability, but I had seen highlights of him, and he had extra special ability to dart around. Like, he was really gifted at moving side to side and getting to different spots. It's almost like he teleported left and right and stuff like that. So I'm like, this dude has really nice footwork. Even when he dribbles the ball, back in the day, you could see his handle was kind of special. So it's like, he has some intangibles. And just no one ever been tapped into. And because I never forgot that, I just kind of watched everybody think of him as a bust while Donovan Mitchell ascended into 72-point player. And I just kind of knew he was under the radar, but I always thought that he was going to eventually develop into something really nice. He's going to do that for Memphis, and you're going to see him in the playoffs be something really nice for this team. I'm telling you. Some of the shooting issues that they've had, some of the issues that they've run into, just not being able to be efficient. We talk about Dylan Brooks' inefficiency at times. Jaren Jackson can run hot and cold. And with Brandon Clark now missing from the lineup, if he steps forward right now, he'll make up for a lot of what goes wrong down there with Memphis and their inefficiency. And I think that's what you saw tonight. I look at the stat sheet, and they had some inefficient players here and there, but then he goes for the 10 threes and just blows the game out the water. So that's a player that I just know is better than people think he is. And he's starting to do this at the right time. And he might be enough to make Memphis a bit better than we need them to be. And I speak for the Western Conference entirely. With Ja Morant back on the court, a new attitude, just as athletic. He's always been, of course. No rust at all. I'm not ruling them out of the Western Conference crown. I'm just not ruling them out. I can see a world where they are actually the team that wins, and nobody wants to see that. They've been bringing about so much bad energy around the league. People don't like those guys, but they have a lot of weapons down there, over in defensive players in the right positions and stuff like that. Shooters now, to where you got to be careful. A guy like Tyus Jones and his ability to play like a monster in any given game, that's not what you want to deal with in a 7-game series. He's going to torch somebody eventually, and I hope it ain't my team. But that's the type of thing that you just understand when you start picking apart how you're going to have to strategize against a team like Memphis. They're going to be very difficult to strategize against because of how many different players can do so many different things. And their youth and athleticism, the size, all over the place. And then, of course, Steven Adams, I'm sure he will be back by the playoffs. So it's like, I know Memphis is not going to be a team that's going to be an easy out. They can run into the wrong team in the first round and be ousted just like most of these teams. But I would not necessarily bet on that. I really wouldn't, depending on who they run into, of course. But Nah, they're probably with home court advantage favored to definite to knock off whoever they run into in the first round. So let it not be my Lakers. So yeah, man, I just wanted to say that much. Clippers with the Paul George injury and some of those roster issues, man, I don't know. They're falling out. I don't know how far out they'll fall, but they're totally in this mix at this point. I think they're down to like ninth place or something like that. With Dallas falling out, I don't think Dallas stays out. Not with Luka Doncic getting back in rhythm. That's not going to happen. New Orleans firmly in place with the easiest schedule left. And Brandon Ingram going crazy with his first triple double, which is kind of surprising to me given the fact that he's always been able to pass the rock, as we've talked about a million times on this channel. I figured he would have had one by now, but he has one by now. So, congratulations on that, BI. And, CJ's healthy and these type of things. And Zion is still going to be missing yet another setback, I think, from what I read. So, I don't know when he will be coming back, but he's still out. So, that's what that is. But Alvarado's on his way back. And, of course, Trigger had a game where he went for, 40-something about a week and a half ago. So if he's going to step forward and come into his own, Jones is healthy, etc. They got a really nice team over there. So with an easy schedule, you can count on them catching a spot. And they could upset somebody in that first round. I can tell you that much. Depending on what their health is looking like, they're not exactly the team you want to have to face in the first round. So, yeah, that's why I'm excited about these playoffs. Because I think there's going to be a lot of parity. I'm trying to psych myself into not further, what's the word, underrate the Denver Nuggets. Like, I'm looking at them in that first spot, and I'm trying to tell myself they're going to knock off whoever they see in the first round because they really are the first overall team, and it shouldn't be a problem. They'll probably get to the Western Conference Finals too because they're really that good. I don't see that. I would be lying to you all if I told you I really saw that. I don't see that. What I see is the We Believe Warrior Food Dallas Mavericks. That's what they look like to me. Like they're going home in the first round, even with the best overall record in the Western Conference. I just don't. The roster's not actually better than some of these teams that we're talking about down here. And they've been getting knocked off by some of these teams they shouldn't be losing to. And so if they bring any of that to the table against any of these teams that's going off in this tournament right now, I think they're going to find themselves in some serious trouble. I don't think most people even like Denver, to be honest with you. Even though they're up there, I think most people see it the way I do. They run into the Lakers, they out of here. They run into the Clippers, it could be out of here, depending on Paul George healthy. It just depends on the matchups they run into. If the Timberwolves fall down there, I don't know if the Nuggets beat the Timberwolves this year. Karl Towns, Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, those two centers dealing with Jokic. You think the Nuggets should probably win that in 6, but can you be certain? Can they afford to roll an ankle? That kind of thing. It's like, Nuggets, I'm telling y'all, man. Some stuff just comes down to it will have to be played out. I can sit up here and say what I think I see based on things I've seen before, based on how I think that roster's constructed, and just overall just not being in love with it. But you consider what Aaron Gordon brings to the table and Jokic, the fact that Porter's healthy and all those guys, you try to psych yourself into thinking if they're all healthy, they're just going to shoot all day long and Jokic's going to find them and they're going to run the score all the way up. But I just cannot envision them staying healthy, man. How many times have we seen that team be healthy? It's just never happened with that core. And they've extracted some pieces from that team, and I'm just curious about now if you got a situation where, if they lean in on Braun a little more, because I really like that player on their bench. The rookie, he's always popping off of the screen, so if he could take some steps forward, you start finding other things on the bench that really works. If that was that young player that used to play for Brooklyn. I always get him mixed up with the other guy who ended up somewhere else. I make this mistake all the time with his name, but if they can just find some players on this team, Bruce Brown, play better, I think the Denver Nuggets can exceed my expectations and get out of the first round. But I just do not see them as a real number one seed in the Western Conference. They don't have it. There's something missing. There's something majorly missing from that team, and I think we're gonna see it. I don't feel that way about the Kings. I don't feel that way about Memphis. But them, yeah, it ain't there, man. I don't know what it is, but it ain't there. And when it plays out in the playoffs, I'm gonna say, see, I told y'all, it's just not there. It's something missing. Jokic is the truth, and you guys know I've talked about Jokic a million times. Everybody knows what I think of the Joker, but it ain't got nothing to do with him per se. He's one player. It's just the whole team, the whole construction of the team, and some of the decisions they made with the roster. I just know that team ain't gonna do it. I know it. And when it happens, you'll hear me talk about it. And if I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to say, "Yo, NBA champion Denver Nuggets, congratulations." You know what I mean? Because that's really what they should be aiming for anyway. Nothing short of it. But it's not gonna happen. Not if you're asking me. It's not happening. That's not gonna happen. So I'm just gonna tell people that I think the Western Conference is gonna be in a dogfight, and I think the Eastern Conference is gonna coast through the. I think it's gonna probably be a much easier playoffs in the East. So I don't know how that translates to what, if it'll even play out that way. But if it does play out that way, my theory is the Eastern Conference probably going to want to take that championship just because that Western Conference will have beaten themselves up in all this nonsense we've been going through over here. That's what it usually goes down, how it usually goes down. The more rested team, especially if they have like a super player like Giannis or something like that, the more rested team is probably going to feel a lot better going into that series. But then again, I can make an argument for the more tested team too. The team that played against the higher difficulty, that kind of thing. But you weigh it against fatigue, and you just know that some of these Western Conference teams are older. That's what it really comes down to. So, for the sake of the West, particularly my own squad, I hope I'm wrong. But if Giannis is on the other end of that thing, I don't know who in the Western Conference is who's dominating that. Who is stopping him? Who's actually stopping Giannis? So that's one thing. But you guys, I've been telling y'all for a long time that the Philadelphia 76ers are my dark horse team to come out of the Eastern Conference. And they didn't have that type of season all season long. But now that we're getting to the end and they've been winning the way that they've been winning, I think it's a good chance they might have a good playoffs right here and do that. They may have a good playoffs in such a way to where they might shock the world, because James Harden is found himself able to kind of turn into exactly what they need him to be. Tyrese Maxey is getting healthier by the game. See, this is the thing where he's missed half of the season. So what I understand is every single game he's just getting better and better and better and better and better and better and better. And so as that starts to be more of a dynamic, you're going to see him start to improve in the playoffs, and that's going to hurt some teams real bad if it plays out the way I think it will. So, of course, the path matters for the Philadelphia 76ers. I've had my issues with Doc Rivers, so if it plays out the way it has, he'll probably end up blowing a 3-1 lead or something like that. But I don't know, man. Joel Embiid is going to have to tell the story here. That's what it really comes down to. This is an unstoppable force. The man can't be stopped by anyone, or any two for that matter. And so if he really wants to, he'll just dominate basketball games. And if his team can just make shots around him and stay healthy, they'll lean on him all the way to where they're going. And so this might be his year to get out of the Eastern Conference. I like his team. I always have all year long. I've thought that they've done some good things, and now that they've picked up McDaniels, I feel even better about them. And so, they're a well-oiled machine at this point. Tobias Harris and those guys have been on the team for a long time. And I'm wondering. I'm wondering if the McDaniels piece is enough to get them over the top because I know what he can do. I was paying attention to his numbers in Charlotte, and he's a guy who can go up. He's only gonna get better and better as well, and may even be able to move into that starting lineup if he hasn't already. So you look at him and Shake Milton and Melton. That's another thing, DeAnthony Melton, and how well he's capable of playing. I remember the game he had against the Lakers where he put up a superstar number 7 steals, some crazy stuff, like 9 threes or something like that. He just did not miss. And so if he can step into his confidence and have a good playoffs, these are players that I know can really assist and ultimately make the Philadelphia 76ers a very dangerous basketball team. Um, so I know what they can do. I have to weigh it against more of the field. You got to think about the teams like Cleveland, New York. And, they're gonna say something about things, but I think a lot of people think Milwaukee's gonna be there. Of course, like I said, Giannis is unstoppable force. They've already won it. They've been at the top of the all year long. So this is very, very well may be a Milwaukee year. I could totally see that. That's not crazy to me. Um, Boston. I'm a Laker fan, so I don't know. Maybe that's just my spirit, but I honestly don't think that now that the season is coming to a close, Jaylen Brown's talking about he got 1 foot out the door, maybe even 2. That's not the type of energy. The coach situation, there's some holes in their roster as well that I don't think they were able to fill. The Gallinari piece being gone, the health of Robert Williams and him not being in shape necessarily, if he's even out there right now. I know he's not in shape. And so this is a situation where I just don't like the Boston Celtics overall. Even though they've been at the top for a long time, I just think when it comes down to a 7-game series, it's going to be tough on Missoula, man. It's going to be real tough. Obviously, you got to deal with JT Money and Jaylen Brown. Those guys are, they're fantastic. They went to the finals last year, so they know each other and they know themselves, but there's something missing from that Boston team. Just like I said from the Denver team, that Boston team has that same problem. They do. It's not as easy to see for me. I mean, the Boston has been that good all year, but they be losing the games. They ain't got no business losing. Like, Boston lost to who? Like to Houston? Who? What? Like that kind of stuff all year long. And you look at the depth chart, and it's like who you would expect to see in a playoff game. So it's like, okay. Well, I just don't think this is a Boston year, man. I think that at the end of the day, I do believe a team like Philly will probably knock off Boston if they see them. Even though they've been better than them all year long, I'm gonna go with them. I'm gonna go with Philadelphia, and we'll just see how it plays out. Maybe they don't even run into each other, but I'm just brainstorming. But I think Joel Embiid is gonna be very difficult to stop in the playoffs this year. Very difficult if he can stay healthy and not have stomach ache or anything like that. But yeah, man, he's hungry. His game is crazy great. So he got a 7-footer who can kind of do Kobe like fade away and stuff like that. I don't know, man. I don't know how the heck you stop him or Giannis. So that's really what it comes down to. I have no idea. So yeah, man, that's what it is. That is what I wanted to say. I wanted to talk a little basketball with you guys. Happy Laker fan, because we are finally 500. We are actually mediocre. You hear me? We're mediocre, and that is a good thing, because that record don't matter. Everybody else is mediocre too, and that means everybody's great or bad, and then so on and so forth. We just want to win this tournament, get this 6th seed, 5th seed, 4th seed, whatever it is. Have some playoff security. Ain't gotta be home court advantage. Just make it so that we don't have a one and done play-in tournament game situation. We don't want that. We don't need that. And it should be doable that we don't face that if we take care of our business. So that's what I gotta say as a Laker fan. That's pretty much it, man. That's 34 minutes of talking. Speaking of 34, sending good wishes to Shaq. I know he had his hip replacement surgery. And so, yeah, 34 is his number. So, yeah, that's what I got to say, man. BDL 44. Thank you all for watching. Out.